Hey, what's up everybody? BDO 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so it's 2:40 in the morning. I'm going to try to keep my voice down, but I usually end up carrying, so please forgive me, neighbors. Even though I'm hearing a knocking, so it's been going on for hours, and you know how that goes, so I guess I'm not the only noise here. But anyway, it is what it is, man. I'm here to talk about basketball. Basketball is on my mind, and I'm looking at the Chicago Bulls. And the reason why I'm looking at the Chicago Bulls is because Lauri Markkanen is playing basically all-star basketball right now, and they did not use him correctly. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're finding out. Now, the Cavs did use him correctly. They paid him, but they traded him, and they traded him for a good reason. They got back Donovan Mitchell. I think it's going to work out. That's a great situation there for the Cavs, even though I think they would have loved to have kept Markkanen as well. I don't think Markkanen turns into the Markkanen that he is with Utah if he stays in that role with Cleveland. In fact, I think that role propelled him to be this player, and I don't know if he would have been this player if he would have been coming straight from Chicago to this situation, and that's important. But the Chicago Bulls, the way they were using him was almost as if he was an afterthought. And unfortunately, he ended up having injuries that kind of set him back. A very serious elbow injury that really halted his development after having a fantastic season that particular year. So you can see where the trajectory was very good from the very beginning. But in my mind, when he was drafted to the Bulls, I was thinking, this ain't no Bulls guy. He should be in Utah. He should be in, some place like that. He should be in Dallas, Phoenix, places where shooters often are found. That was the understanding. Like, he should be somewhere like that. Golden State. He doesn't necessarily need to find himself in a place like Chicago, where at the time they had no shooters. They were known for being a muck it up type of team that does dirty work. Kind of one of those teams that you really don't know if they're going to find a bucket from possession to possession, but they'll probably find a stop and some rebounds. Elton Brand, that kind of, situation. But it's like they picked this kid up, and he's like a pure shooter that doesn't play defense at the time, and it's like, he's going to be able to ring off 8 threes immediately, but you're really not sure what else he's going to do. And it's like, why'd they pick this guy up if they can't properly put him in a system where they can utilize him? You know what I mean? They had, if I'm not mistaken, they started having Derrick Rose issues with the knee at the time. I'm not really remembering what era this is that Markkanen ultimately came in on, but the point is he was like a fish out of water as it pertains to what the Bulls were used to putting on the floor and the type of piece he was bringing. So it was like, okay, they're going to have to change their style. They're going to have to bring in a certain type of coachings. They're going to have to bring in certain players to kind of turn themselves basically into a Dallas type team, and I just didn't know how they were going to do that. And they didn't. Simply put, they did not. They just ultimately kept what they were doing going, and at the time they didn't have the greatest management to begin with, so it just became a situation where Markkanen didn't develop properly. He got this reputation of being like a role player that could hit some shots for you, maybe a guy who can get some upside going if he ever gets healthy, but probably won't get healthy. That was the way it went. And so you start looking at his contract. It's not very good when he was signed to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I was looking at that like, I know he can play, and if given a bigger role, I'm pretty sure he can spread his wings, but what does that look like? You know what I mean? I certainly didn't think it looked like this. But at the same time, when he was initially drafted, this is who you thought he would become. And Utah is the type of place where you ultimately wanted him to be. So it's like he's finally in his natural, kind of environment where they do things the way that it should be done for him to be showcased. And then you look at Danny Ainge and the vision that he has for the team, and they've put together other players that complement Markkanen and kind of push forward his strengths and allow him to kind of showcase what it is that he does and where he's at in his career after shaking off all those injuries and ultimately just developing. He's just ready to break out. It's a perfect storm. And as I said, that Cleveland situation, kind of gave him a different look in regards to what he can do in the NBA. When you put a guy at the 3 spot, put him in a big lineup like what they had down there, you start getting a little success. They were a very good team, made the play-in tournament, obviously only because of injuries. They would have been a for sure playoff team if they would have just been able to stay healthy. So, looking at what situation he's coming out of, now it's like, all right, I proved myself to be somebody who can who can really contribute. Now they're giving me a starring role. Nobody's proven themselves, and basically the ball's going into my hands, and he's just taking complete advantage. And now he's going to be an all-star. I don't see any reason, knock on wood, that he doesn't make an all-star team. He deserves to be there this year. And you look at the Chicago Bulls, their situation is horrible. They paid Zach LaVine, and it's early in the development of his recovery. I guess it's not development; it's more so recovery of the knee. Is the word, the way to phrase it. He's just not quite in shape yet, and they're asking him to be the Zach LaVine that he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when he was ringing off 4 and 5 threes in a row and getting 40 and 50-point games, stuff like that. He's just got to get in shape. Zach LaVine is what I like to call one of those genetic specimens, somebody who can do things that normal humans just can't do. And so for him, it's not really about whether or not he's lost athleticism or whether or not he's ever going to get it together and physically. It's about getting in shape, and then from there being put into a situation that, like Markkanen, flourishes his strengths to the forefront, pushes his strengths to the forefront. He's literally one of the most lethal, pure guard scorers in the game today. But he's suffered a lot of injuries that have kind of set him back. A knee injury that set him back early in his career with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then other injuries here with the Bulls. So it's like, with Zach LaVine, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I don't think he's ever really had great coaching. When I look back on Zach LaVine's career, he was drafted as a really, really, really young guy. Him and Devin Booker were both puppies, and we knew they were going to turn into what they became. But it was one of those things where it's like, I don't think Zach ever went into a situation when you go to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, their situation was horrible when he got there. He flourished there, but you know what I mean? It was no winning going on. And then when he got to Chicago, no winning going on, basically until last year. So I don't think, when I watch Zach LaVine play, I just look at a guy who has a whole lot of natural ability, but I don't think has had the type of coaching that can put him in a position to be a winner. And that's ultimately what it is. I don't think he's been able to prove he can win anything. So for him, it's just about getting in shape, and then from there being able to prove he can win. Now my thing is, that Bulls situation, looking at their roster, I've hated that roster since they put it together. I love the players, but they just have too much of the same thing, and the way that their salary is set up, it's just allocated in very, very, very awkward ways. And then the Patrick Williams situation, see, I look at them like I look at the Lakers. Everybody who leaves your system is going to play better when they get out of there. Markkanen is somebody who's proven that to us. Kobe White, same thing. As soon as he gets out of there, he's going to be somebody different. That's what I see there. And I think Patrick Williams, the absolute same thing. They didn't develop him properly, just like they didn't develop Markkanen. I think we're still in a space where we believe Patrick Williams ain't nothing because of that. It's no, he needs to find his Utah. That's what needs to happen with Patrick Williams. He needs to find his Utah. He needs to get the hell out of there. And it needs to happen now. Like right now. Because at this point, his career is not heading in the right direction with the Chicago Bulls. And he's showing signs of being able to be a guy who can get you a double-double here and there, but he really needs to get the hell out of there. He needs to get to a different situation. He needs to go to and honestly, I think he needs to be sent to the G League for big minutes. I think that needs to happen. And I think he needs to be humbled about it, because I think it's good for him. It's not that he's not able to play in the NBA. It's just that he's not playing up to the level that he was drafted to be. And it's not too late for him to get it together. He too, like Markkanen, suffered some early injuries. His knee injury, I believe it was, or something of that nature last year, set him back. But it's still very early. But the Bulls are not developing him like that. They're not focused on him like that. They have the ball in other people's hands. They're running a more of a fast-paced game with those guards. And I just think they overloaded on high-level guards. It's almost like playing fantasy basketball when you just want to load up on forward. Just like, all right, I got Zach LaVine. Let me go ahead and get DeMar DeRozan. All right, let me get Ayo DeSumo. Okay, let me get Alex Caruso. But it's like you got to pay all these people their salary, and you also got to fill other positions. And in the Vucevic situation, that I don't know. I like Vucevic as a player a lot. We saw what he could be in Orlando. He's a stud. But just like I said, when you go to Chicago, you're going to play worse. It's just how it goes. Just like the Lakers. You come here, numbers go down. It's just the system they run. So Chicago's going to have to understand that and then fix that before trading players away so players can look like their best self. And then you can get the most for them. Because right now, this is the dynamic. You know what I mean? And it's like if anybody you bring to you is going to end up probably having their numbers dip as well for that same reason. And so teams that have that problem, you got to fix your culture or whatever, your coaching, your style of play, whatever you got to do, it has to start with you first, because every time you do a trade, it's going to make you less and less valuable simply because of that dynamic. So that's what I see there, man. Just players are not developing properly in Chicago. Ayo DeSumo, speaking of him, he's playing well. He's able to develop somehow despite being in this log jam of forwards. I don't know how he's doing it, but if I were them, since he's on the rookie contract, he would be the one I'd try to keep. I would trade everybody else, man. I really would. I would strip it down and start over because they have good pieces, but it's no way for them to really make the team good enough to win, in my opinion. You can't trade Vucevic for something that's going to get you good enough. So you got to trade backwards, basically. You got to turn him into lesser stuff, into a pick or two or whatever, in my humble opinion. But you do need to replace his salary with something else. DeMar DeRozan I would want to keep, but it's like, you got to stay win now. Zach LaVine, I would definitely want to get rid of that salary. There's no path in my mind where that salary makes any sense for you at all. I said that before he signed it, and I'll say it now. It's not that it's a bad contract, because he is one of those great athletes. But the reality is, if you can't put a win-now team around him, you're just sitting on a bad contract. And with the injury issues he has, it just doesn't make any sense. And with the other players you have around you who play his position, it really doesn't make any sense. And so signing him was just something that they did because they wanted to keep a star that they had inherited as a small market team. And it's sound. And keeping DeMar DeRozan, same reason. Absolutely sound. But the other pieces around it, they gotta make sense. And in this position, they don't. They just don't. You need Alex Caruso on the floor. You do not want to play small ball. You need Zach and DeMar on the floor. You need Vucevic on the floor. Do these pieces fit? Like, do you have enough shooting to make this make sense? Do you have enough defense, enough continuity? Ayo's going to pass some. I know he's an assist guy. But who's looking for others in this situation? We know Zach is not a point guard. DeMar DeRozan's definitely a passer, but he more so is looking for his shot as well. And in a system where other guys aren't passing, he can't be the only passer as a primary scorer by nature. So it's like, this is a very, very bad mix of players to have at these particular prices. Now, if you're going to have them all at a decent price, then you can bring them something that makes sense. Maybe a glue guy that can kind of bring everybody together. That might be something that can make the Bulls a better team. But at this price, with Zach LaVine eating up max, DeMar eating up max, Vuce eating up max, and players not developing properly around that, this needs to be blown up. The Chicago Bulls should consider retooling completely. Those contracts that they have, it's not like they're bad. Like I said, those players are players that teams should not have a problem wanting. If you're a certain team, like I can't really even think of one, but Zach LaVine is a player that you can add to a good mix of players and feel great. Vucevic, there are teams around this league that need a center right now. Now they'll be happy to take Vucevic off your hands, no question about it. Teams that are going to be trading centers that they're not going to be re-signing, maybe they would be looking at Vucevic as a player they might want to bring in instead. These are things that if you're the Chicago Bulls, you got to try to jump on top of now or within this trade season, because if you let some of these players get hurt on these big contracts, it's only going to get worse from here. It's only going to get worse from here. And you keep drafting these forwards, you keep drafting these Dylon Terrys. How are they going to ever develop? How are you ever going to get anything for these guys? And so I just see a path to nowhere for Chicago. And looking at Lauri Markkanen and how he's developing, you just understand where they've gone wrong. They just chose the wrong guys, paid the wrong guys, kept the wrong people in place for too long, drafted improperly, all these different things. You know, that Patrick Williams thing, that was another one of those Anthony Bennett type situations where they knew something everybody else didn't know. That doesn't work very often. Occasionally it does, where you can reach for a guy. I remember a team like OKC did it with Russell Westbrook. A team like Phoenix did it with Sean Marion. Guys, you'd be like, I don't know if he's supposed to be drafted this high, but let's see what happens. And it works completely out. But this, unfortunately, Patrick Williams, it ain't turning out, man. It ain't panning out. He was supposed to be drafted about 3-4 spots later. They reached for him, knowing something we didn't know, and could not turn him into what it is that they were supposed to turn him into. Simply put, it should not have been done. We knew it that day, and now that we see how it's panned out, shame on you. Shame on you, Chicago. Because if you're going to reach for a guy, you got to put him in a position to succeed. You got to develop him properly. And this, this is yet again where they have not. So, that's what I got to say, man. That is it. I had to rip them a new one. Because at this point, you look at Markkanen and how well he's playing. You look at some of the players on the back of their bench. If they're not developing, guys just keep getting hurt, but not quite coming back to situations where they can ever be themselves again. It's like, stop piling guards on top of guards. You know what I mean? And then keeping these dudes. Free Kobe White. I have him on the back of this bench no more. You know that boy can play. You know he can help a team. A team like the Lakers, we can't hit a 3-point shot to save our lives. And you ain't playing that boy no minutes. Send him our way. You ain't doing nothing with him. I think I'll end the video right there, man. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.